Okay, you're good.
I called this meeting of the Moore County Board of Elections on Thursday afternoon, September 4th at 4 p.m.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Never mind.
It's September
It's
4th
September.
at 4 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Please join me in standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now have the roll call, and please state if you have a conflict of interest.
Bob Howell, no conflict.
Martin Carpenter, no conflict.
Susan T. Adams, no conflict.
Holly Powell, no conflict.
Craig Kennedy, no conflict.
There is a pamphlet over by the door outlining that there will be no disruptive behavior during the course of our meetings. So if you have any questions, please make yourself privy to that information. At this time, we will start with public comment, and we begin with Maurice Holland. Maurice, if you'd like to come down and take that.
My name is Maurice Holland. I'm the East Aberdeen Precinct Chair for the Moore County Democratic Party, and my public comment concerns the East Aberdeen polling place. My position and the position that I talked about in February at your meeting was that I feel that the polling place on East Main should remain there at the American Legion Hut. It's been there for several decades. I first registered to vote in 1981, and that was the polling place at that point. It's highly visible. The alternative that has been selected is a place, even though it's a place of worship, it is obscure compared to the American Legion Hut. They're on Main Street, which has a high visibility. And speaking with the mayor and other people, and in fact, the last time in February, Commissioner Beavers actually spoke and agreed with me. And that's a rarity for Commissioner Beavers and me to agree on anything. So I would hope that you all would vote to keep the polling place in East Aberdeen at the American Legion Hut. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Carol Wilden. Pass, okay. And Ms. Laney.
Yes. Yes, I'm Wilma Laney. I am one of the Aberdeen Town Commissioners. And I had to come up because I too feel that that is the best place. It is highly visible. People walk by there constantly, and someone will just stop and vote because he's just going right past the place. Over there in the back where you're putting at that church, there's no visibility. There's not as much traffic there. Matter of fact, there's very little traffic there. And we want, one of the main things we want to do when we're voting is to get out as many people as we can. And I think that is the best place to do it. People are used to coming there, and with it being back there, some people may not even realize it's there. So I too support leaving it where it is. I've never seen a big crowd or any reason to move it. So I do agree that we should keep it there. Thank you so much.
That concludes the public speaking portion. We have before us, we have read the minutes for August 28th. I would like to call for a motion on accepting the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes of August 28th as presented.
Is there, okay. A motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, the motion signify by saying aye if you accept. Aye.
Aye.
Madam Director.
Yes, ma'am. So, this meeting was called, to discuss, an error concerning the East Aberdeen precinct, but due to an abstain. What I have in the board members folders is the first meeting that took place, so that way we can use that as a reference point since we didn't have that. When that meeting took place on April the 29th of 2005 at 4 o'clock. And this is just to give background information, and so this way we can all kind of follow. And this is why I put it in here. So when we first were talking about the Aberdeen precinct, I had already went over this logistics of why. And when the motion was first done and one of the members had abstained, it seemed like that the abstain was due to the fact of to move it when that took place. And then we didn't, nothing happened. Another motion was done, and then, it was an abstain. And I thought the abstain was for it to be moved, and then we went to another motion. And then that motion was for it to be kept. That was what was in my mind when that took place. So then I had gotten some information from the state board because I was wondering about the abstain, if a board member could abstain. When I got the information from the state board about the abstaining, the state board had said that as board members are not allowed to abstain. It is their duty as board members to always vote on matters when it comes to any job as board members. And so we had to redo the vote. And so I had sent that information back out. And so I was wanting to make sure that we properly handled it, but not understanding how to handle the abstain and then the second vote. So when we came back again, and I explained it about the abstain in the July 24th minute, I gave the explanation, thinking that when the abstain was done, it was abstain to move it. That was the explanation that I gave. When I gave that explanation, all the board members agreed, and so then it was moved, and it was a unanimous vote to move it.
Excuse me.
I'm just
What-
getting,
yeah, I just want to say something. The board members did not agree and we did not vote.
I'm just saying what, I'm just
At
giving,
that meeting where
Ms.
you
Holly,
told
can you
us-
just let me
Okay,
explain?
sure.
I'm just explaining to what I assumed it to be. Okay, thank you. So after everything was explained, as I assumed it to be, everybody was like, oh, they were okay with it, we moved it. We moved it, and then we came back in an email that 2 days later, this is when it was brought to my attention that it was an error 2 days later, which was today is Thursday, this Tuesday. It was brought to my attention. So this was not done intentionally, it was not done facetiously or anything of that nature. No one else on the board recognized that it was an error, that it was done facetiously or anything of that error, as an error. So then I contacted the state board to say, okay, this is what happened. I gave them the minutes from each meeting about the motion that took place. Then I gave them what took place from the second meeting to say, okay, what can we do to correct it? Because everything that took place happened in the meeting, was placed in the minutes. I spoke with Parker, which is also in your folder, saying due to the fact that it is a precinct, you can switch it as many times as you need to, as far as it being a precinct. There's nothing wrong with that. So to correct it, he said, you can discuss it as a board and you can make another vote on as to what the decision should be for that precinct with this move. Now, I'm just saying for me, Ms. Holly, that's what I took it to be. Not saying that that's what the board said, but that's what I took it to be. That's it. And I'm not saying that, but that's what I took it to be. And so that's why we had this, asked for the board to come today to meet, to make a vote on the East Aberdeen precinct as to what the final decision should be for the East Aberdeen precinct.
May I make a comment, Madam Chair? I'd like to present how I see the issue, as detailed in the minutes from April 29th. And I'm just gonna read them to you. Holly Powell made a motion to leave the polling place at its current location for the upcoming municipal elections and to not allow tents, seconded by Chair Bob Howell. Holly Powell and Bob Howell voted aye. Martin Carpenter and Susan Adams voted nay, with Antoinette Kelly abstaining. The motion did not pass. It was determined it did not pass based on input from Tawana at that meeting, because she said that there was no majority vote one way or the other because Tony abstained. And I'm just going to go on with that meeting, and then I'll talk about the issue. Martin Carpenter made a motion to move the polling place to the New Life Tabernacle Church, seconded by Susan Adams. Martin Carpenter and Susan Adams voted aye, with Bob Howell, Holly Powell, and Antoinette Kelly voting nay. The motion did not pass. So then the minutes say the precinct will remain at the American Legion hut for now. So the minutes say neither motion passed, so it stays where it is at the American Legion. And then at the other meeting, Tawana came and told the board that that was a mistake, and that the aye vote that Tony made, the abstain vote that Tony made on the first motion should count as a yes, which we have confirmed that that is the instruction from the state board, that an abstention counts as a yes. And then Tawana went on to inform us that yes meant it was moving, when in fact the motion Tony abstained from was to leave it where it was, which a yes would mean it stayed where it was.
Yes.
And the second vote about moving it wouldn't have even taken place because the first motion would have passed.
And when I said that, when I did say that, in my mind, I thought that it was supposed to have moved, which at that time, myself and a staff person thought the same thing. And the board, at that time, no one said anything. And that's what in my mind, I thought that's what took place. But then when it was brought back to my attention, that's what I realized took place. Yes.
Okay, so I just want to add, at the meeting where you informed us that the yes vote meant it was moving, I was totally caught off guard. I didn't know you were going to say that. I didn't know that issue was still out there. We didn't have the minutes in front of us. We didn't discuss a resolution that would confirm that that was the correct interpretation. We didn't, you just told us, this is what it meant, so it's moving. Done deal, not an issue for us to discuss. It required some research of the prior minutes and some research of what an abstention meant to come to the interpretation that I'm describing today, which I think means it should stay where it is without any further action of the board, because that's what that vote meant.
And I actually,
But
I do not disagree with you. Both of these had that abstention been counted as an aye like we originally thought, the location would not have moved. We were unclear. That's why we did the second one. I wanted to try and keep it. The vote was no. So as of the end of the 29th, it stays at the American Legion. Now, that doesn't mean it has to stay there. The board can change its mind and move it to the church. And so that's where I think we're at right now. I agree that at the moment it is at the American Legion. Now, we have to decide, do we want to leave it there or do we want to move it to the church? I think that's what today's all about.
can I guess a point of order, Madam Chair, but it sounds like we're discussing a motion to clarify that as opposed to asking questions of Ms. Dixon for clarification of her presentation of what happened. And I think perhaps Holly's follow-up fell into that category. I just think if we continue the discussion, there should be a motion on the floor, rather than, unless the board wants to continue whatever it is that we're doing right now, of making comments for clarification.
Okay, I will then make a motion that we move the polling place to the New Life Tabernacle Church.
A motion has been made to move the voting place to the new Tabernacle Church. Is there a second?
I'll second that, so we can continue discussion.
Motion has been made and seconded, and discussion is over.
First of all, I think that motion is not relevant to this issue of why we are meeting today, as Ms. Dixon explained. It seems to me that the issue is not revisiting the question of where should the polling place in East Aberdeen be. If we set that precedent, what is there to keep in the future another board member to raise the issue after the decisions about polling places throughout the county have been made, to say, hang on just a second, I think we should move the polling place in North Southern Pines to the fire station instead of at the St. Anthony's Church. There are times and procedures for the establishment of polling places, which has taken place. The staff went through their roles, the board went through its role, and on review at this point, I think we agreed that on April 29th, the vote that we took was to leave the polling place at East Aberdeen where it is at the American Legion hut. The confusion came up only because of an honest mistake on Mrs. Dixon's part, which she acknowledges, of confusion of which way an abstention should count. By the way, that's another issue that we should take up, if not at this meeting, at a future meeting, because we're veering off base with what it means and whether it's even appropriate or possible for a board member on a county board of elections to abstain from a vote if it has nothing to do with a conflict of interest. Getting back to the main point. So I think that if we need to discuss and vote and take an action at all, and that's the guidance that we got from another point, that an email that Ms. Dixon included from us, it is for the sake of, since there was a discussion, a decision, a vote made and in a public meeting and recorded in the minutes, if we are going to change that, if we're going to correct that mistake, then I have been persuaded that it's suitable for us to meet, discuss, have a vote recorded in the meeting. But I think the issue is, do we correct the mistake that was made since we know the information now? Or do we leave the mistaken location of East Aberdeen site at the church, only because it was made before and because perhaps, and I can understand and sympathize with the staff, and I think there's potential for a little confusion, which again can be corrected. A mailing has been made to East Aberdeen residents, incorrectly stating that the board voted to move it to the church. I think we can correct that by affirming the vote of April the 29th, that for this municipal election, the polling place stays at the American Legion. Thank you.
Now, I did ask if we could just wait until after this elections because the mailings did go out. I have a deadline that I have to meet and that deadline will be noon tomorrow to place the election notice in the paper to get it into the pilot for Wednesday's paper. Because I'm on a deadline to get that published by a certain deadline through my election schedule. And I did ask that question as well when I was having a discussion with a board member. And it was just like, well, let's just wait. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
I guess I'm trying to understand, either of the votes that were taken on the 29th, both said, leave it at the American Legion. So that vote says, keep it at the American Legion. That does not mean we have to stay with that. If we as a board decide to move it, we can do that. Now, I think you're saying that the agenda does not talk about us addressing moving. Yet I'm looking here, I'm seeing East Aberdeen precinct move, which means to me that we could vote today if we wanted to move the precinct. Now, if we think that that's not proper, the agenda's got to be more specific, then I guess we call another meeting as soon as possible and vote on the actual move of the precinct if that's what we want to do. I think it's covered by the agenda right now. But no complaint. The previous votes were keep it where it is. Now the question is, do we want to move it?
I'd like to make a couple of comments. So the meeting of April 29th, I was not on the board then. Okay. And so I've read through these minutes, and you're right, it does, that would have meant that it stayed at the Legion Hut. But my first meeting that I attended as a board member on July the 24th, this was on the agenda. And I understood what was on the agenda. And the motion during that meeting was to move it to the church. And we had a 5-0 vote. Everyone here voted to move that precinct from the Legion Hut to the church. And I do remember sitting here thinking to myself, I don't think Bob and Holly voted the way that they thought they were voting. Now, I do not know what you interpreted because I'm not in your mind, but you voted to move the precinct. So now it's almost like, hey, I made a mistake in my vote and I want to change it back to the previous location. Now, we've had a meeting and it's in our privy to move that location and we voted to move it. And it is on our agenda today. And so there's a motion and there's a second. We're having discussion. And if no one else has any discussion, I'd like to call the vote.
Can you give me a second? What was the date of the meeting that she told us it should move based on the previous vote?
Is it the 24th of July?
July the 20th.
Yep, it's on the second page on
Okay.
July 24th minutes. And Craig, my understanding and my reading of the minutes, where it says moving of East Aberdeen polling place accords with Holly's memory, which is that we received information from the director, but I haven't gone back to watch the tape because I thought it was pretty clear. I think this was presented as information. I was also caught off guard. I was thinking, wait a second, I thought we were staying. But at that moment, I didn't have access to the necessary information. And
But you
I don't know what the other members recall. I don't want to contradict Mr. Kennedy. I don't remember having a vote. I remember
It doesn't say there
informally,
was a
it
vote.
doesn't say that in the minutes, maybe informally, all of us assenting to the information that Ms. Dixon presented us with. After that, it was my intention to go back and do the sort of research that Holly did, as usual. She beat me to it. But, and I appreciate what she did. I think it's kind of clear that this board voted and agreed to leave the polling place at the American Legion Hut for this municipal election.
Yeah, well,
Where do you see we voted?
I was sitting right here.
No, but it's not in the minutes.
I didn't say it was in the minutes. I just said we voted as a board 5-0. And you actually said, I kind of regret voting that way. You voted to move the
Why
precinct.
isn't that in the minutes?
Because you put your hand up and you said, is this what we're voting now? And you said, I get, well, okay, I'll vote.
Well, it's based on incorrect
Incorrect
information
information.
I'm
about
just
what the
saying, because
previous
I was
vote meant.
surprised that you agreed with it, and I thought, wow.
And you and Bob both agreed. There was a motion, a second. We voted. It's on video. It's in. So we voted to move it. So now here we are again, back at the table to vote this again. So I, right now, am calling the question. We have a motion, we have a second, and I'll call the question.
All those in.
I'm sorry, calling the question doesn't mean that we automatically vote. To call the question means the discussion is paused, and there needs to be a 2/3 majority. I mean, this is according to Robert's rules,
Okay.
to cease discussion and to vote. So I think we first need to vote on whether we should cease discussion and vote. And if we agree, then we can vote on the motion.
So you're saying we have to have 60%. My guess is we're not going to get a 66% since we're divided, basically 3-2, which means the most you're going to get is a 60%, which means that if we're doing that, then we couldn't move forward. And I don't think that's where we want to go right now.
Okay. So we'll continue discussion.
And that,
I'd like to make one further comment.
Okay.
please. We could look at the YouTube video. I'm not going to say I don't believe you as to the vote. I don't know why it's not in the minutes. If I don't remember it, but if Bob and I voted in favor of that motion, it was based on erroneous information about what the original vote was or what it
No,
meant.
it was a plain as day motion to
Based-
move the precinct from the Legion Hall to the church. That was flat out the motion.
But the motion
And
was based on Tawana telling us it
It
was
had
an
nothing
error.
to do with that.
That's not true.
Maybe. I'm just telling you, it was my first meeting and I sit through there and I read the information. And you actually gave me credit for knowing the statutes when we were appointing precinct people. So I'm telling you that we voted to move the precinct and now you want to move it back to the Legion Hall. That's what you're asking. And it
We
was a
voted-
5-0
I understand
It was
what you're
5-0
saying. I understand what you're saying. But you cannot deny that that vote was based on the information that Tawana gave us.
The
That
information
Tony's
that
vote to
Tawana
abstain
gave me,
meant that it was moving.
the information that I read is there's not adequate curbside parking at the Legion Hut. There's not adequate handicap parking. We're talking about moving the precinct, polling place, to a safer location with more parking, handicap parking, better accessible. People don't have to wait on the porch to get into the building. It's better space for the poll workers. That's what we're talking about. A safer space. That's all we're talking about.
All of this information came out in our discussion, and you're at a disadvantage because you did not attend the April 29th meeting.
Right.
And I appreciate your willingness to jump in at this point and to
Right.
engage in the issue. All of those points were made by the director, were discussed among the board. We ultimately voted to leave in April, to leave the site at the Legion Hut for another variety of reasons that ultimately a majority of the board, despite an initial confusion on the part of one member leading to the abstention. But we ultimately, a majority voted to leave it at the American Legion Hut. And in essence, what I believe Holly and I voted for on the 24th of July was to affirm the vote that had been taken in April. Unfortunately, we were told that the vote taken in April was to move this polling site, which, as has been acknowledged, is incorrect. And I think that is what the issue is, not relitigating the question of where should the polling place be. That question has already been taken up. I think we have an opportunity to correct a mistake that was made and to inform the folks in that precinct where they can continue to vote at the American Legion Hut. And that can be done within the parameters and the deadlines that Ms. Dixon has explained to us.
I do have a question. So when, at the last meeting, when we were looking at the confirmation cards and the question was posed about the signage being placed, which signage were we speaking about when that question was posed? Because that was one of the questions that was asked, was we going to have signage to point the voters in the right direction to make sure that they were going to be aware of where the new polling.
I know you don't intend this as a free question.
No,
but I'll go ahead
I'm
and
not,
answer it.
because when we were looking at both of them, because I wanted you to see that both of them were going to have, that both places were going to have the signage placed. Because for the American Legion, it's just straight down the street. And I said, my comment that I made was for Nick's route, because that's his route, he would put it out that Monday night to make sure that the people knew. Because that's the only one that I mentioned, and the board was okay with that. And nothing else was said. That's why I said, with every comment that I said, nothing was said until after the fact. That's why I said nothing was done intentional. It wasn't to be facetious. It was, like I said, 2 days later that this became the error that was brought to my attention. That even, like I said, even me and my staff, we looked at the video and that's when we recognized it. So from April the 29th up until 2 days now, that's when we were like, oh. And so that's what I said. It wasn't intentional. I'm not saying that it was to trick the board or anything of that nature. Everything that I put out there to the board, everything that we said that we were going to do, put the 2 notices out, up until the very last meeting that we had, when I said that Nick was going to put the sign out in front of the American Legion Hut to point the voters into the new direction. All of that was said, and nobody said anything.
Because up to that point, we were under the impression and assented to what you presented us.
And I understand that, and I do, and that's what I was saying. So that's what I'm saying. Like, no one caught it. The only time that it was brought to the attention was just 2 days ago. All this time, so I was curious as to what the research, did it take this long, or was it just something that was triggered? I wish that it had been triggered a little bit quicker, and not saying, because I know we're all busy and everything like that. So, because when I had sent out the abstain information, the day that abstain was done, I had sent that information out like the day after or the 2 days after. And I know Bob and Antoinette, you said thank you to it, because I was just like, that didn't seem right then. And then we kind of forgot about it and everything of that nature. So that's why I said I can admit to the fact that with everything that took place and all the conversation that was going through, because even when Carrie was writing the minute, we were trying to get clarification as to who said what then. during the meeting. And that's why I was like, in my mind, it was just like, the abstain was for it to be moved, and that's why I was asking then. We were trying to get clarification, so that's why I said it wasn't, to be, it was just a mistake, an error that took place. And so, but that's why when like I said, when I reached out to the state board, it was just for clarification. Now this board does know that in everything that you do, you have to have a vote. You cannot abstain. You have to have a vote. And so I'm just wondering now what this board wants to do when it comes to this location now.
Well, the minutes of the 24th appear to be in error. Can we approve those minutes? Or was that something we were supposed to be doing now?
So
we
those
approve-
minutes were already approved.
Yeah,
So
so
those,
they're in error because it basically said that abstention was a vote to move it when it was not a vote. It was a vote to keep it where it was at, as Holly read. So but the bottom line is, Mr. Holland told you, we can move precincts as many times as we want. As far as I'm concerned, the last official one was the 29th of April. And let's talk about it. The Democrats controlled the State Board of Elections and the County Board of Elections at that time. It's now the Republicans control the State Board and the County Board. We may want to do it differently, we may not. But we do have the option now of deciding if we want to move the precinct to the church or leave it where it is. I think that's really the only issue right now is, are we going to take another vote for this? And I believe we've already had it moved and seconded to take that vote.
I think you're correct, totally correct about that, Marty. We can move any precinct at any time, apparently. If we want to have a motion and we want to vote in favor of that. I'm just wondering why everybody is so set on, why the people who really think we should move it want it moved, when everybody we've heard from today and at the last meeting where where we invited public comments, including a Republican who's a poll worker, if not a judge, Eddie Staverdine, supported leaving it where it is. Why are you so set on moving it?
well, so I was curious about that too, because we did a mailing of over 3,000 for East Aberdeen precinct. We haven't received any feedback from anybody concerning that move. And if it is a concern, we would like to hear from it in our office concerning that move, because we only did that municipal election. We didn't do anybody else. Like I said before, when we were first going through everything with that precinct, we always look to better any precinct in any one of our municipalities. We were looking to better the precinct where the Ball Visitor Center over there near the Sand Hills Community College, because there is nowhere to campaign. We were afraid of campaigners being hit because they're trying to get into the streets, they're in the flower beds. And we finally got into contact with somebody there who just spoke with me recently. So this is something that's always going to be happening each year as we get reports. We're looking to better the precinct in Bass because they can't campaign. There's hardly any space there for them to campaign. And so we're looking every spot where we can do somewhere better, where it's better for everyone. And the statute does say that we do have to offer a space for the campaigners. Okay, that is something that the statute does regulate for us to do. But it's hard here when, depending on the area where it's congested, there's not a lot of spacing for us. And then a lot of times, there's not a lot of county supported buildings. One place that was mentioned to us was the library. Well, the library isn't completed yet. Once the library becomes completed, that could be a space that we can go as a public supported building. They're going to be building a community room. Then once that takes place, we can go there if they'll, let us go in there. But until that time and place takes place, this was a space that was much bigger. It could offer campaigning where everybody's not on top of each other, where I have been to here 3 years and there has been contention with the campaigners, where the voters can't even go inside, they're having to wait outside, we have to keep the door propped, we have to be careful what leaving ballots out, because if it's raining, ballots can get messed up due to moisture. So there's many problems with that building. And yes, they have used it and it has held up over the space of time. But a lot of times, sometimes with the growth that's going on, we always are looking for a better location. We were looking for a better location in the Eastwood precinct, but thankfully the fire department paid the parking lot and that made it better for us. So over time, we are always going to be looking for a better location for our precinct if a better location develops. It was suggested at the last meeting that yes, eventually we are going to have to move that location. It was just the fact that and for me, it was just the fact that because it was the church that we were going to, and because we didn't have any elsewhere else to go, that became the issue. But like I said, they are building a library. Eventually, when that location becomes available, maybe we can go there and everybody will be okay with us being in that location. But it's very difficult to find locations where people will be willing to let the Board of Elections use it for that long of a period of a time and let us use it. So it's very difficult to find locations where everybody is going to be happy. And so.
Now, physically, I think we should all agree that the Legion Post is not a good location anymore and that we need to find another place to move it. The opposition seems to be that, and somebody presented this earlier on last spring, that some people in the precinct would not want to go to this church to vote. For whatever reason, they wouldn't want to go to vote. Well, when we set up the voting at West Southern Pines Land Trust, I had a lot of people that did not think we should be there. And I told them, you don't have to live there. You go there, you vote for 5 minutes. That's all it is. This is no different moving to the church. And, we talk about people walking by. People are not going to randomly be walking by and say, oh, I think I'll go vote today. They're going to be purposeful. I'm assuming that I need to go vote today, and here's the location, I've been told, and I will go there and vote. So I think it's time for the vote.
Is there any new discussion of things that we haven't already previously covered? I would like to call for the vote. All those in favor of moving the precinct from Legion Hut to the church that's a block away? What's the name of the church?
New Tabernacle.
New Tabernacle Church. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Nay.
Nay.
the vote is 3-2.
In favor.
In favor of moving the precinct to the New Tabernacle Church. There being no further business to come before us this afternoon, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So, second.